It's December the 9th, 2020, and our December with Deuteronomy today takes us into chapter 3. Next, we turned and went up along the road towards Bashan, and Og, king of Bashan, with his whole army, marched out to meet us in battle at Edrei. The Lord said to me, "Do not be afraid of him, for I've handed him over to you with his whole army and his land. Do to him what you did to Sihon, king of the Amorites, who reigned in Heshbon." So the Lord our God also gave into our hands Og, king of Bashan, and all his army. We struck them down, leaving no survivors. At that time we took all his cities. There was not one of the 60 cities that we did not take from them. The whole region of Argob, Og's kingdom in Bashan. All these cities were fortified with high walls and with gates and bars, and there were also a great many unwalled villages. We completely destroyed them, as we had done with Sihon, king of Heshbon, destroying every city, men, women, and children. But all the livestock and the plunder from their cities we carried off for ourselves. So at that time we took from these two kings of the Amorites the territory east of the Jordan, from the Arnon Gorge as far as Mount Hermon. Hermon is called Sirion by the Sidonians. The Amorites call it Senir. We took all the towns on the plateau and all Gilead and all Bashan as far as Salika and Edrei, towns of Og's kingdom in Bashan. Only Og, king of Bashan, was left of the remnant of the Rephaites. His bed was made of iron and was more than 13 feet long and 6 feet wide. It is still in Rabbah of the Ammonites. Of the land that we took over at that time, I gave the Reubenites and the Gadites the territory north of Aroer by the Arnon Gorge, including half the hill country of Gilead, together with its towns. The rest of Gilead and also all of Bashan, the kingdom of Og, I gave to the half-tribe of Manasseh. The whole region of Argob in Bashan used to be known as the land of the Rephaites. Jair, a descendant of Manasseh, took the whole region of Argob as far as the border of the Geshurites and the Maccathites. It was named after him, so that to this day Bashan is called Havoth Jair. And I gave Gilead to Machir, but to the Reubenites and the Gadites I gave the territory extending from Gilead down to the Arnon Gorge, the middle of the gorge being the border, and out to the Jacob River, which is the border of the Ammonites. Its western border was the Jordan in the Arabah, from Kinnereth to the sea of the Arabah, the Salt Sea, below the slopes of Pisgah. I commanded you at that time, the Lord your God has given you this land to take possession of it. But all your able-bodied men armed for battle must cross over ahead of your brother Israelites. However, your wives, your children, and your livestock, I know you have much livestock, may stay in the towns I've given you, until the Lord gives rest to your brothers as he has to you. And they too have taken over the land that the Lord your God is giving them across the Jordan. After that, each of you may go back to the possession I have given you. At that time I commanded Joshua, you have seen with your own eyes all that the Lord your God has done to these two kings. The Lord will do the same to all the kingdoms over there where you are going. Do not be afraid of them. The Lord your God himself will fight for you. At that time I pleaded with the Lord, O sovereign Lord, you've begun to show to your servant your greatness and your strong hand. For what God is there in heaven or on earth who can do the deeds and mighty works you do? Let me go over and see the good land beyond the Jordan, that fine hill country and Lebanon. But because of you, the Lord was angry with me and would not listen to me. That's enough, the Lord said. Do not speak to me any more about this matter. Go up to the top of Pisgah and look west and north and south and east. Look at the land with your own eyes, since you are not going to cross this Jordan. But commission Joshua and encourage and strengthen him, for he will lead this people across and will cause them to inherit the land that you will see. So we stayed in the valley near Beth Peor. Amen. Now, in verses 1 to 11 in this chapter, we see with Og, king of Bashan, something very similar to what we saw at the end of chapter 2 with Sihon, king of Heshbon. We are now on the east side of the Jordan. The entering in to the land and possessing the land, that hasn't happened yet. That's going to happen in the book of Joshua. But this is a foretaste. What is happening here is basically what's going to happen to the whole land of Canaan in the coming days. And we see the pattern being established for what's to come. It's God who's doing this. He gives this land. He will defeat this king and his kingdom and the people, the armies here of Og. But the Israelites have to obey. They have to go forward. They have to go in. They have to fight. And they have to take hold of what God has given. And they have to execute his will, which will mean executing all the people. Verse 6, we completely destroyed them. That is shocking to our way of thinking today. But the point is this, that this is not just that these people will be evicted and that this land God has decided, for he is the Lord, everything belongs to him. He has the right to do whatever he is pleased to do. But actually, this will also be an act of judgment upon these people for their sin. Go back to Genesis 15 and you'll see the reason for that there. And it's hinted at again and again and again. So it's happening here on the east of the Jordan and soon to the whole land of Canaan. The principle has been established, and we saw that, was it just yesterday? It's by grace, it's all God's gift, this land of Canaan, but it's also by faith. They've got to be obedient to the Lord's commands. That's the only way that his will, his plan can be fulfilled. Verses 1 to 11. Then verses 12 to 20, more detail about the division of the land east of the Jordan, gifted to these 2.5 tribes. Do you remember that and how that came about? Yet also, verse 18, this was part of the agreement, that while their people, the wives and the children and the families, can settle down in these towns, their fighting men must go across shortly with the rest of the armies of Israel. They must go, as it says in verse 18 and into verse 19, you must go with your brother Israelites to possess Canaan. And then eventually they can come back and settle east of the Jordan. Finally, verses 21 to 29, we have Moses and Joshua. Despite his fervent pleas, verse 23, Moses must bear the consequences of his sin. Again, you remember that when he struck the rock and got angry and rebelled against God. So he will see the promised land, but he will not enter it. Verse 27. Rather, verse 28, a new man is needed. Joshua, he is the one who will lead them, cause them to inherit the land that you will see. And in great humility, actually, Moses will assist him, encourage him, help him, and train him, and then pass the baton on. We see here with Moses and Joshua, don't we, a warning and a challenge. We see the terrible consequences of past sin, but we also have here a future hope. And again, this is part of the principle and the shape of God's dealings with people, how he works and how he wants us to respond. And even in the new covenant, even in The book of Ephesians, chapter 4, 22 to 24, we see this principle being worked out. You were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires. Moses failed to do that, and he has to bear the consequences. To be made new in the attitude of your minds, that's the key. And to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness, to go in, to possess the land like Joshua.